After my hip surgery, I asked if I could stay with them just until I could walk again. My son-in-law said, "Only if you don't touch anything." My daughter pointed to a thin blanket on the garage floor and said, "This is all we can offer." I cried myself to sleep beside a box of tools. But weeks later, when a man in a suit came to their door with a folder labeled in my handwriting, everything changed. I'm 68 years old and I just went through something that broke me in a way I didn't think was possible. I've been through hard times before, widowed early, worked 2 jobs for decades, raised my kids without a penny from anyone, but nothing stung like what my daughter and son-in-law did to me after I broke my hip. Let me tell you how it happened. Every bit of this is true. I live alone in a small house just outside of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. It's not much, but it's mine. I paid it off 5 years ago. My husband, Cal, died when I was 42, and I've been on my own ever since. I raised 3 kids, Renee is the middle one. She used to be the sweet one. Now I barely recognize her. It started in early January. It was freezing cold, icy sidewalks everywhere. I was walking out of the Fairway grocery store when I slipped on black ice in the parking lot. I don't remember the fall. Just the sound of my hip cracking and the pain that followed. Next thing I knew, I was waking up in the hospital. They said I broke my hip in 2 places and needed surgery. It went well, but the recovery would be long. The physical therapist told me clearly, I couldn't live alone. At least not right away. I needed help with walking, cooking, bathing, just until I could use the walker on my own. So I called my kids. My oldest, Darren, lives in Arizona. He offered to fly me out, but I knew I couldn't handle a plane ride. My youngest, Kendra, was 6 months pregnant with twins and living in a small 1-bedroom apartment with her boyfriend. She cried when she told me she couldn't take me in. I didn't blame her. That left Renee. She lived just across town. Nice 2-story house. Married to a man named Bryce who worked in logistics or shipping, something like that. They didn't have kids, just a big golden retriever and a home that always smelled like scented candles. I called and asked if I could stay with them for a few weeks. I told her I would stay out of the way and leave as soon as I could walk again. There was a pause. She said, "Let me check with Bryce." An hour later, she called back and said yes, but Bryce had conditions. I didn't ask what they were. I was just grateful to have a roof over my head. Big mistake. The hospital discharged me the next morning. I paid for a taxi myself, nearly $40. No one came to pick me up. When I got to their house, I waited on the front porch for a good 5 minutes in the cold, standing with my walker, my hip screaming in pain. Bryce opened the door. He didn't say hello. Just looked at me, then looked at my bag and said, "Only if you don't touch anything." I didn't know what he meant. I thought he was joking. He wasn't. Renee appeared behind him and waved me in. I followed her. I expected her to lead me upstairs to a guest room or maybe the couch. She opened the door to the garage. "This is all we can offer," she said. There was a thin blue blanket laid on the concrete floor, right next to a pile of toolboxes and a few dusty boxes. No heater. No space heater. Not even a pillow. The cold from the concrete went straight through the soles of my shoes. I was still standing there, silent, trying to make sense of it. "My hip," I finally whispered. I can't get on the ground. I can't sleep down there." "You said you needed somewhere to stay," she said, crossing her arms. "This is what we have. The rest of the house is organized." She said that word like it was sacred, organized. I turned to Bryce. He was already walking away. "We keep things in order here," he muttered. "Don't move anything." They left me there. Didn't even close the garage door. That first night, I cried harder than I ever have in my life. My husband's funeral didn't make me cry like that. My bones ached. The cold made my teeth chatter. I didn't sleep. I just stared up at the ceiling, listening to the heater kick on inside the house and wondering how my own daughter could treat me like this. The next day, I asked for a pillow. Bryce said they didn't have extras. I asked for a space heater. Renee said the outlet in the garage wasn't safe. Every morning, I listened to them in the kitchen. Laughing. Eating. Making smoothies in that loud blender. I sat in the garage with my walker, eating dry cereal from a bowl Renee left out. No milk. Just dry flakes. After about a week, I stopped asking for anything. They clearly didn't want me there. They didn't speak to me unless I asked for something, and even then, it was like I was some ungrateful squatter. I heard Bryce whisper to Renee one night, "She's going to die in here." This is ridiculous. She didn't argue with him. That's what really hurt. She just let him say it. 3 weeks went by like this. Then, on a random Tuesday afternoon, someone knocked on their front door. I heard Bryce answer it. A man's voice said, "I'm looking for Evelyn Monroe." Bryce snapped, "Why? Who are you?" The man didn't budge. "I have documents for her." She asked for them to be hand-delivered. Next thing I knew, the garage door opened and a tall man in a suit stepped inside. He was holding a thick folder, sealed, and had a calm look on his face. "Mrs. Monroe?" he asked. I nodded. My voice caught in my throat. He handed me the folder. My name was on the front, in my own handwriting. I recognized it immediately. It was from a lockbox I hadn't opened in over 20 years. The man said, "I'll wait for your call after you've reviewed it." And he left. Bryce looked shaken. He kept staring at the folder like it was a bomb. What he didn't know was this. That folder contained my will, several property deeds, and financial records tied to a trust one had set up when I sold my parents' land years ago. I'd almost forgotten about it myself. The lake house in Minnesota. The duplex in Waterloo. A commercial property that still had 3 years left on a lease. Everything was in my name. Renee was listed as the main beneficiary. I stared at that line for a long time. Then I picked up my phone, called the number the man gave me, and said, "I need to make a change." He came back 2 days later. I signed everything new. Removed Renee's name from every document. She didn't notice anything. They were still ignoring me. A week later, I packed my things, my purse and a paper bag with a sweater in it. I left a note that said, "Thanks for the garage." I limped to the curb, called a ride, and left. But I wasn't finished. Because I still had something left to do. And when I did it, it shook their little world to the core. After I left Renee and Bryce's house, I stayed in a motel for a few nights. Not fancy. Just warm. Clean enough. The woman at the front desk gave me a discount when I told her I'd just had hip surgery and nowhere to go. I cried again the first night, this time from relief. The man who delivered the folder, his name was Mark, helped me get in touch with a local attorney. I told him everything. The way they treated me, the garage floor, the cereal, the rules. He looked at me and said, "You don't need to tell me more. We'll take care of it." We started the paperwork. I didn't just remove Renee from the will. I made sure every piece of property, every asset I had, was locked away from her and Bryce permanently. I added Darren and Kendra instead. Both of them called me crying after they found out what happened. Darren said he'd fly in right away. Kendra offered to drive hours just to bring me food. They cared. They always had. But here's where things get messy. About 3 weeks after I left, I got a call from a number I didn't know. I let it ring. Then the voicemail popped up. It was Bryce. "Evelyn. We need to talk. Something came in the mail about some kind of ownership change on one of your properties. We're confused. Can you please call back?" I didn't. Then Renee called. She didn't sound angry. She sounded scared. Mom, she said. Did you take us out of the will? I didn't answer. I got 10 more messages that week. Each one more frantic. Then something happened I didn't expect. They showed up. They found out where I was staying. I came back from a doctor's appointment and saw their car parked outside the motel. Bryce was pacing by the entrance, and Renee was crying in the passenger seat. I walked right past him. Evelyn, wait, he shouted. You don't understand. Renee's been having a hard time. I stopped and turned. A hard time? I said. So that's why you made me sleep on the floor of your garage after surgery? He flinched. Renee got out of the car and ran toward me. We didn't think it would last that long, she said. We thought you'd leave after a few days. We weren't prepared. Bryce has been stressed from work. I looked her dead in the eyes. You didn't bring me a pillow, Renee. Not one. I begged you, and you looked at me like I was asking for a gold bar. That wasn't stress. That was cruelty. She covered her mouth and started crying harder. Bryce stood frozen, staring at the parking lot. Then she said it. Are we really out of the will? I didn't say a word. Just walked past them and into my room. That night, I got a knock on the door. It was the motel manager. He looked nervous. Ma'am, your daughter asked if she could come see you. I told her I'd check with you first. I shook my head. No. Not tonight. Not ever. But she came back the next morning. And the next. She left flowers once. Another time, it was a card that said I'm sorry. I didn't throw it away. I just didn't answer. About a month later, I moved out of the motel. Darren helped me find a place. Small but nice, one level, no stairs, perfect for recovery. He even flew in and stayed for a week to help me get settled. That's when the real twist came. Mark, the lawyer, called me and said something strange had happened. Bryce tried to access one of your property records, he said. He filed something under your name. A revocation. Completely fake. We're dealing with it, but they're up to something. I felt sick. I thought I'd cut them off clean. But it turns out Bryce had kept a copy of some old documents, probably from when I trusted them years ago, and he was trying to forge paperwork to claim ownership of the duplex in Waterloo. He didn't just want back in the will. He wanted to steal from me. I told Mark to press charges if it went any further. Then I got another call from Renee. Mom, she said, we didn't mean to upset you. Bryce is just trying to fix everything. I finally lost it. Fix? Is that what he calls forging my signature? Sleeping on your garage floor like an animal wasn't enough for him? There was silence on the line. Then she whispered, I didn't know he was doing that. I hung up. But that's when I realized something else, she was lying again. There's no way Bryce did that behind her back. She helped push me out of their lives once. Now they were trying to crawl back in and take what wasn't theirs. So I made another plan. One they'd never see coming. Not just revenge. Proof. Exposure. Payback. After I found out Bryce tried to forge documents in my name, something inside me changed. I wasn't just hurt anymore, I was angry. Not loud, screaming anger. The quiet kind. The kind that sits in your stomach and burns a hole through everything soft inside you. I had spent decades sacrificing for that girl, and now she was lying to me, trying to steal from me, and still acting like I was the problem. Mark told me to sit tight while he worked on blocking Bryce's forged claim. We had legal grounds to file fraud charges. But I wanted more than paperwork. I wanted them to feel what I felt in that garage. So I started digging. I called a woman named Melanie, someone I hadn't talked to in years. She used to be Renee's best friend in high school, before they had a falling out. I never knew why they stopped talking, but Melanie had always been kind to me back then. I found her on Facebook. Sent her a message. She replied within an hour. We met for coffee. The first thing she said was, I always thought you were too good to them. Especially Renee. I told her everything, what happened after the surgery, the garage floor, the lawyer, all of it. Her eyes got wide. Then she looked down at her cup and said, I guess you don't know about Bryce. Know what? I asked. She leaned in and said, Bryce has been cheating on Renee for years. Not just once. Multiple times. I used to see him out at restaurants with different women. One time he was bold enough to bring one to a holiday party and introduce her as his coworker. My stomach twisted. I asked her why she never told Renee. She laughed bitterly. I did. She called me jealous. Said I was trying to ruin her marriage. I sat with that for a minute. Then I asked if she had proof. She pulled out her phone. Actually, I do. Turns out, Melanie had kept screenshots. Old text messages. Photos of Bryce holding hands with a brunette at a hotel bar downtown. One of them was from just a month before I moved into their garage. I asked if she'd be willing to send them to me. She said yes. So now I had two things, proof of Bryce's forgery attempt and proof of his affairs. But I didn't just want to go to court. I wanted this to be personal. Because what they did to me was personal. That's when I remembered something important. A few years ago, before Renee married Bryce, I gave them a wedding gift, a small piece of land in Cedar County, meant to be theirs to build on someday. Nothing fancy, just a quiet patch of land outside town. I still held partial ownership, but I let them put their names on it for sentimental reasons. It was a legal mistake on my part, but emotionally, it gave me leverage. I called Mark. Can we do anything about the Cedar property? He looked into it. Turns out, Bryce had taken out a loan against that land, behind Renee's back, and he was using it to fund some business investment that was likely just a cover. If I pulled out my share, the loan would default. Mark said, Are you sure you want to do this? It'll ruin them financially. I said, They already ruined me emotionally. So we started the paperwork. I didn't tell anyone. I just waited. 3 weeks later, it hit them. Renee called in full panic. Mom, something's wrong with the land deed. The bank called. What happened? I didn't say a word. The next day, Bryce showed up at my door. I didn't let him in. He shouted through the screen, You don't understand what you're doing. You're destroying your own daughter's life. I looked him straight in the eyes and said, No. You did that. I'm just cleaning up the mess. Then I handed him an envelope. Inside were printed photos of him with 3 different women, taken over the last few years. On top was a note that said, The garage was cold. These are colder. Leave me alone. He left without another word. That night, I blocked both their numbers. But I wasn't done. Because what they didn't know was that I had one more move left. And it was going to burn everything to the ground. 2 days after Bryce left my porch with that envelope of proof, I got an email from Mark, my lawyer. Subject line, It's time. He'd found something big, bigger than I expected. The business loan Bryce took out using the land I'd gifted them? It wasn't just a loan. He'd used forged documents, again, trying to claim sole ownership of the land. And the investment? A personal LLC Bryce started that was flagged for suspicious activity. He was funneling money into it, likely trying to hide assets or keep funds off the books. Mark filed fraud charges the next day. We attached the deed dispute, the fake revocation attempt, and submitted it to both the court and the bank. But I didn't stop there. I called Darren and Kendra. I told them it was time. We'd been quiet long enough. So we pulled our resources and did something petty, maybe even extreme, but it felt right. We took out a billboard. One of the digital ones right off the highway, on the edge of Cedar Rapids. For 1 full week, it showed a picture of a garage floor. Just a blanket. No context. Then underneath it, white letters, this is how they treated their mother after her surgery. Bryce and Renee. The internet did the rest. People posted about it. Some guessed it was fake. Others said it had to be real, too specific not to be. It didn't take long for someone to recognize their names. Then their house was posted. Then screenshots of Bryce's company website. Then the cheating photos leaked. Melanie, Renee's old friend, anonymously dropped those into a local Facebook group. She tagged the business Bryce worked for. It went viral in our town. Within 3 days, Bryce was let go from his logistics job. Corporate didn't give a reason, but it didn't take a genius to figure out why. The company couldn't afford the scandal. Then the bank came knocking. Bryce had defaulted on the land loan after I withdrew my share. They seized his car, froze their joint accounts, and started proceedings to take the land itself. Renee tried to play innocent online. She posted a picture of us when I was younger, captioned, "Please stop attacking my family." You don't know the whole story. People weren't buying it. One of the top comments was, "You made your mom sleep on a garage floor after hip surgery. Don't ask for sympathy now." But here's the part that surprised even me. Renee filed for divorce. 3 weeks after the billboard went up, she showed up at my new house. I didn't answer at first. Just watched her from the window. She knocked again. Her eyes were red. She looked like she hadn't slept. So I opened the door. Before I could say anything, she collapsed to her knees. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know what he was doing with the loan. I swear. But the garage, that was me. That was all me." I didn't speak. I was overwhelmed. I felt trapped. "I thought if I gave you the garage, it was still something." "You thought I'd be grateful?" I said. She nodded, crying. "I thought I was doing the best I could." "No. You were doing the bare minimum and hoping I'd stay quiet." She didn't argue. Then she pulled something out of her purse. A paper. It was a signed divorce petition. And a letter addressed to me. I didn't read the letter right away. I let her leave first. She didn't ask for anything, not forgiveness, not money, not even a hug. I sat down later and opened the envelope. The letter said, "Mom, I deserve every bit of what happened. I let Bryce turn me into someone I hate. I treated you like a problem, not a person. I'm divorcing him, I'm giving up the land, and I've withdrawn my name from your old will. Not because I expect anything back, but because I don't deserve it. If I ever get another chance to be your daughter, I'll earn it. Not ask for it." Renee, I sat with that for a long time. I didn't cry. I just stared at it. In the months that followed, Renee moved into a 1-bedroom apartment across town. She got a job at a nursing home. Said she wanted to do something that made her feel useful. I didn't reach out. Not at first. I focused on getting better. My hip healed. Darren flew me out to Arizona for the spring. Kendra had the twins, and I held both of them in my arms, one on each side. That's when I felt something finally start to loosen inside me, some of the pain that had built up since the garage. Bryce didn't recover. He filed for bankruptcy by summer. His name was still all over the local scandal. No one wanted to work with him. No one would trust him. I heard he moved to Indiana. Alone. As for me? I rewrote the will one last time. I left the lake house to Darren. The duplex to Kendra. I added something small for each grandchild in a trust. And for Renee? I left her nothing. But I added one thing, a letter, folded inside a sealed envelope, to be delivered only after I pass. It says, "You lost what mattered most not because of Bryce, but because you forgot who you came from. I loved you even when you left me on that floor." But love doesn't mean no consequences. If you ever feel the cold concrete under your own back, remember how easy it was for you to walk away. Maybe that's where you'll find your way back to yourself. That's the end of it. I don't want revenge anymore. I already got it. Every time I sleep in a real bed. Every time I wake up warm. Every time I see Bryce's name in another foreclosure listing. But mostly, I got it the day Renee cried on my porch, not because I enjoyed her pain, but because I finally saw her see me. And that was enough.